So welcome back to Timely Topics, our second class on logical fallacies. So last week we went over 6 logical fallacies. We had the ad hoc rescue, which is defending a belief by inventing unprovable excuses. No true Scotsman, which is redefining terms to protect a generalization. Slippery slope, arguing one action will inevitably lead to disaster. Hasty generalization, drawing conclusions from insufficient evidence. Post hoc ergo propter hoc, assuming causation from sequence. And genetic fallacy, judging ideas based on their origin. So did anybody find any of these throughout the week? At 8 o'clock they said they found like 5 when they got home in like the first hour. So anybody remember one they saw last week? So one I saw was a post hoc ergo propter hoc on the flooding issues down in Texas, with this kind of claim that, because we've cut some FEMA stuff, this disaster was worse. And just because you had that correlation doesn't mean causation. There's stuff that goes back a long time with the floodplain. This is worse than even the 100-year floodplain. So trying to make that claim is a logical fallacy. It's trying to, here's something that happened, let's have it all equate to the reason for it. If anybody has an extra sheet and a couple, if you can give one to the Owsleys there. So this week we're going to look at 8 more logical fallacies. The first is begging the question. So this fallacy assumes the conclusion within the premise. It's like saying, this is true because it's true. So an example that's often around churches is the Bible is divinely inspired because it says so in the Bible. That's a circular argument. It does say so in the Bible, but without external evidence, it's not a logically persuasive argument. It's just a faith claim. And you can have a faith claim, but you can't use that. I see all the time, like Christians try to convince non-Christians, hey, the Bible is the divine word of God because it says so in the Bible. Well, anything else, when it said, Stephen wrote that Stephen's the best, therefore Stephen must be the best, people are going to be like, no, that's weird. So it's not a logical argument. So that's the circular reasoning we see sometimes. The next is ad hominem attack. It's attacking the person or group instead of their argument. Because we don't want to deal with the merits of the case. We just want to go after the group. So examples might be, I've heard before, Islam is bad because some of its followers are violent, and not dealing with looking at Islam. Or the Reformation was wrong because Luther was sexist. Yeah, Luther had some issues. Doesn't mean everything he did was bad. Or Mrs. Franklin's concern doesn't matter. She's ignorant. You don't want to deal with her concern. It'd be like, David Whitenack has an idea. And we're like, well, we don't want to deal with David Whitenack's idea because David often has crazy ideas, so this one must be crazy. No, maybe it's true, but we're not looking at his idea. We're looking at it based on him. So it happens kind of like genetic fallacy in a way. It's like, well, let's just take out the idea by taking out the person or the group. Oh, this idea must be bad because President so-and-so said it and he does all this other bad stuff. Well, this idea might be good though. You got to look at the actual argument and not the person or the group. There's a place to kind of say, okay, this group has a history of this. That could be part of your argument against it while looking at other things, but solely on the basis of we don't like this group has done bad things, this person says crazy things, doesn't make their argument, their concern, whatever, invalid. So it avoids the real issue by focusing on personal attributes or perceived faults. It's a way to avoid dealing with the actual issue, which the red herring does as well. So red herring logical fallacy is a distraction tactic, shifting the topic to something only loosely related, often emotionally charged. So this happens a lot. Someone might be saying they're struggling with recovery or something, and someone says, well, others have it worse. Maybe they're trying to help, but you're not dealing with the fact that they are struggling with recovery or whatever. You're pointing towards something else instead of dealing with their issue. Another one might be back in the pandemic. I heard this one. It's like, it's unsafe for people to go to work right now because of the pandemic disease. And someone says, well, what about victims of abuse at home? It's not safe for them to be at home. That may be true, but it has nothing to do with the fact that whether it's safe or not to go to work. It's taking the argument in a whole different direction in an emotionally charged place. Because you don't want to deal with the merits of the actual argument. Is it safe to go to work or not? You're going a different direction. So that happens a lot. Politicians are great at this, right? Someone asks them a question about something they don't like, so they'll target it and say, well, this is a really bad thing in the world. Let's talk about this. They never actually answer the question. They talk about what they want to talk about. And we all do this to a degree. It's one of the kind of skills of public speaking. If you're in a question-answer period, you have like 8 answers to common questions. And if somebody asks a question you don't want, you turn that question into a question you do know the answer to, and you answer that one. But you're not dealing with it. So the red herring just kind of takes you off in a whole different direction. It avoids engaging the issue directly, because often people don't want to actually engage an issue on its merits because they haven't done the research. They know their arguments aren't very good. They don't want to deal with it, so they try to steer it away instead of actually having constructive conversation, learning something, maybe realizing they're wrong, maybe realizing this is a good argument. But we don't like to be wrong. The next comes up all the time is the straw man. It's misrepresenting someone's argument so it's easier to attack. So example from the pandemic is people against masks want to kill the elderly. No one ever said that. People would make it up and say that, assign motive to kind of scare people. But no one was actually saying, you know what? Let's not wear masks because we want the elderly to die. I don't think anyone said that. But people claim that's what some side wants. The straw man, and then it's an easy argument to beat. Or one often comes up, it's like, it's the war against Christmas. They're trying to get rid of all references to Christ or anything. No one's trying to get rid of Christmas. Every year people try to create this false idea to scare people. Every single year when I used to be on Facebook, someone would post a stupid thing from Ben Stein about the White House says no Christmas tree this year. And people believe it's real. It's some old thing that wasn't even really true at the time. But people create this, they're getting rid of Christmas, to kind of scare people or enrage people. So we create these straw man arguments. Here's one from the church a few years ago. We were looking to buy a new organ. Some of the arguments were, well, if we get a new organ, we're going to cut down on mission work and mission giving because we're spending all this money on the organ. They didn't want to deal with the pros and cons of the organ, so they pushed it, one kind of a red herring to mission, but also creating an argument that no one who was pro-organ was saying, hey, let's get an organ because we want to cut down on mission spending. No one was making that argument. In fact, the opposite kind of happened. We try to say is, the rising tide raises all ships. A lot of our people who really, really love good music are also our biggest mission givers. So when you get better music and more people coming in, you often have increased mission giving. And if you look over our finances the last several years, that's proven to be true. We also typically, whenever we do a big project inside the church that benefits the church, we almost always do an equally big project outside the church for mission. So after we put in the organ, our big mission project was building a school in Pakistan. It cost basically about the same amount as from our funds. So people were saying, we're going to cut down on mission, but no one actually was making an argument. They were creating a straw man that they felt was a winning issue, if that makes sense. So we see this a lot. People will create arguments they know they can win that no one is actually saying. Politicians do this often. The right want this, the left want this. When no one from that side is either saying, yes, we want complete unfiltered open borders, or we want no one to ever enter the country again. Neither of those things are true, but you hear from the other side, you think that's what they want, because they can beat that argument down. So basically it creates a fake argument and defeats that rather than engaging with the real ideas. Often when you have like two talking heads on the news, they both are beating up straw mans they've created, so they're never actually talking to each other. They're both kind of fighting a make-believe argument so they both can think they're winning. But they're not actually engaging with either's real argument. And so it's a waste of time to watch, which is why I don't watch anymore. The next is the false dilemma, or either-or thinking. It's presenting only two options when more exist. It's like America, love it or leave it. You have to love everything about it or you have to get out. No. I mean, even with people, there's very few people we love every single thing they do. It's not like we have to approve everything this person does, love everything about them, or never speak to them again. No. There's a lot more choices in there. Or back in the pandemic, I heard we either worship in person or we might as well shut the church down. No, there's a lot of different options. There was hybrid worship, there was online, there was outside, there was rotating people inside. There's so many different things to try and do. It wasn't go fully open or shut down. That was a false dilemma. I remember back when I was at another church, we were looking at starting a preschool. And someone kind of gave this logical fallacy of, if we don't start this preschool now, we'll never be able to start it again. So it's kind of this kind of thing of pushing people. We need to do it now, just giving them, this is our one opportunity. I said, no, that's not true. Is this probably one of our better opportunities? Absolutely. We got a lot of pieces in place with the people to do it. But we could wait a year or 2 or 3 or 10. Doesn't mean now's the only time. To try to say it's now or never is to create fear and push people into a choice instead of actually looking at whether now's the right time or not. So this false dilemma, it's this or that. Binary thinking is almost always meant to manipulate. There's usually 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th ways. Next, you have the bandwagon fallacy or the appeal to popularity. It's assuming something is right because many people believe it. Examples, everyone's buying this toothpaste, so it must be good. It's like often thinking because something's a bestseller, it's really good. If you go on Amazon and you look for something, it might say #1 bestseller. You buy it and you're like, wow, this is really bad. It's because a lot of other people fell into the same trap of a lot of people buying this, I should buy it too. And it doesn't actually mean it's any good. One from the pandemic is, saying, oh, the whole church wants in-person worship, so you should too. Maybe, but the majority is not always right. Sometimes everybody doing something is not a good thing because you keep kind of perpetuating this wrong action because everyone's doing it. So you're trying to appeal away from the logic of the argument, the good reasons to, well, everybody else is doing it, might as well do it. Popularity does not equal truth. Majorities have been wrong before, and they will be again. The next is false equivalence, claiming two things are morally or logically equivalent when they are not. So to make both sides seem equally guilty or flawed, it often comes up with both sides arguments meant to excuse bad behavior or downplay serious wrongdoing. So an example is Tina called Matt a jerk and Matt hit her with a brick. They were both cruel. Maybe they were both cruel, but one called someone a jerk and the other hit them with a brick. Is that equal? No. So yes, both may have done wrong, but they are not equally wrong. The comparison falsely equates verbal and physical harm to excuse the more serious offense. I'll give you a real-world church example. Years ago, when I was working with a presbytery, a pastor was accused of embezzling money from a church. And one of the members of their church said, well, the church probably underpaid him, and he embezzled, so it all evens out. No, that's not how that works. But it's trying to make an excuse, saying, well, here was a wrong, and here was a wrong. It's like thinking in NFL football, if you have a defensive and offensive foul, they equate each other, you get a do-over. That's not how life and arguments actually work. So sometimes we try to make this false equivalent and say, well, this was bad, but this was bad too. Let's just call it even. Doesn't work that way. The next is probably the biggest one you see all the time. The official word is to quote, well, you too, but whataboutism. It's responding to criticism by pointing out that the critic has also done the same thing or something similar. It's an attempt to invalidate the argument based on perceived hypocrisy rather than logic. So you can say, well, you did the same thing. They might have been wrong too. Doesn't mean they're right this time. So it's, you missed last month's meeting too, Kelly, so don't tell me I can't miss this one. Kelly's past doesn't address whether Michael should be skipping now or not. She might have been wrong to skip before. You can't criticize apartheid. You had slavery. Well, past U.S. actions don't excuse current wrongs in another country. We use that to try to shut down critique, to say, well, you can't talk about this because you've done these things before. Here's the problem. What happens is different groups will find something someone did kind of wrong, do the same thing, and be able to say, well, they did it. It's precedent. And you just get this chain of wrong. So let's say in politics, you have a Senate use some kind of nuclear option thing to pass legislation. And the other side complains and say, well, you did it back in this time. And they say, well, that's because you did it back in this time. And what happens is you have an excuse to do things that probably shouldn't happen, but you each time say, well, they did it last time. So you're building a rationale for wrongdoing. Whether that's a way to work a legislation thing, whether that's cheating on something, whether that's not doing your job, we kind of built an excuse that we don't have to do it because you did it this way. Two wrongs don't make a right. But instead of engaging with the issue each time, we just look at past behavior to say, hey, it's fine, it happened before. So those are the 8 logical fallacies for this week. And you'll see them out and about, especially the strawman arguments. We see that all the time, especially like almost every meme on Facebook is a strawman argument. It's creating something that no one is actually saying. I see it all the time. It's like someone makes something up. It's, oh, this is the problem. Like no one's actually saying that. One of the things that happens in church a lot, my favorite phrase is, people are saying. I always ask what people are saying. People. I'm like, is it you? Are you saying? Because almost every time when people are saying, it's just one person with a gripe. But we kind of create this thing to kind of build these logical fallacies. Oh, it's building steam. People are saying we need to have a petting zoo in the church. I'm like, are people saying that? Or are you saying that? So you have to kind of watch these things. So we create these straw man arguments constantly of this is the worst case and this is what's going to happen. And no one's actually making an argument. We twist. So all these different things in theology, Calvin and Calvinism, all this stuff, it's rarely ever about Calvin. It's some other person has taken their stuff, extremified it, and then we call that Calvinism or that Lutheranism or whatever it is. And it's not the real thing. Just to watch it, who's making the argument? And kind of ask yourself, is the other side actually saying this? And find sources. Because I see both sides, politicians will be like, oh, the left, the right are saying this, they want to do this. And I look, I might see something similar, but it's not exactly the same. They're creating their version of the argument that's easier to beat, that seems more extreme. And we use it to manipulate. All these things are used to manipulate the public, to manipulate you into buying something, into agreeing with something, into letting something happen, into jumping on board, into looking the other way. All these logical fallacies are used every day by newspapers, news, opinion pieces, talking heads, politicians, meant to manipulate how we think and engage with the world. And the more you know and say, hey, that's logical fallacy, let's actually look at it. They probably won't address it, but you can do a better job of looking into it yourself to figure out what are the actual arguments, what are the things actually at stake. Questions, comments, logical remarks? All right, I will see you next week for number 3, another like 6 or 8 fallacies. There's so many to look at, it's fun.